Do you think I'm spooky?
Be afraid. Be very afraid. What have you done to its eyes?
Good evening, and welcome to Soft and Spooky. For today's video, we are going to be looking at the highly anticipated 2023 film, Renfield. I am going to kind of switch it up a little bit, and let me know if this works out for you guys in the comments below. But for this video, I'm just going to have all spoilers throughout so that I don't have like two separate portions of the video. So let me know if you do like this format or if you prefer the other format better. But yeah, that is your spoiler warning, and without further ado, let's sink our teeth in. Renfield is directed by Chris McKay, who I most recognize for Robot Chicken and the Lego Batman movie. So this film was written by two writers. We have Robert Kirkman, who worked on The Walking Dead, and then we also have Ryan Ridley, who worked on Rick and Morty. I thought it was kind of interesting that we have a horror writer and a comedy writer working on this film, so I thought that, I don't know, I kind of expected for this film to be a really good mashup of comedy and horror. The movie Renfield brings back the classic Universal horror character Dracula back to the screen, and the movie actually centers around his assistant, played by Nicolas Hoult.
Steve Holt?
Steve Holt!
And Dracula is played by the always refreshing Nick Cage. So I'm not gonna lie, Nick Cage was the selling point for this movie. Like, this is why I went to see it, because I wanted to see Nick Cage acting. I love him. I love him. I feel like for so long he was either underappreciated or misunderstood as an actor, and I just love seeing that there is such a fan base that is built around him, and kind of feels like he's starting to get some of the respect that he deserves.
I felt that in that movie I had become seasoned and I had entered the room.
It's sort of like when I've gone to see a live show or like an improv show, you can kind of tell when like an actor is holding back or not fully committing to the bit. And the thing with Nick Cage is that, like, no matter the role or the scripting or the directing, this man gives 110% and it shows. Gone in 60 Seconds, Vampire's Kiss, Ghost Rider, Kick-Ass. Nick Cage is the man. Like, he is the mood and the master of fun cinema. And that's what breaks my heart so much about this movie. This movie, it kind of sucked. And that's what's so frustrating, is that, like, I'm an easy mark. Like, I was all set up to love this movie, and the fact that it didn't live up to my expectations, I just feel, like, personally victimized. The allergies are killing me today. I'm so sorry if it's, like, all up in here. Ha! After the movies, I decided to rush to the reviews and just see if like anybody else agreed with me or could validate my feelings. And now I feel even more alone. When I looked it up on Rotten Tomatoes, it was at a 60%, which is a lot higher than I was expecting. And then 90% of Google users liked the movie. And so I just felt like, is it me? Am I the problem?
Is it me? Am I the drama? I don't think I'm the drama.
I also want to take a moment to just say that if you do love this movie, I totally support you, and like, please don't take it personally. There were certain things that I didn't enjoy about this movie, but that doesn't make it any less enjoyable for you if you did enjoy it. So yeah, just wanted to say that it's nothing personal. I'm just some bonehead on the internet that wanted to talk about my feelings. Admittedly, I do want to say that there were a couple of factors that were hindering my viewing experience even before the movie started. So usually when I go see a movie, the lights are pretty dim already by the time I get there. But this time, the lights were on full brightness, and ignorance is bliss. It's like my AMC has gone through a nuclear winter. Like, those seats are so mangled and worn out and stained. And even better, the seat that I had picked out when I bought the tickets, I even took a clip of it because I was just like in shock. It's like somebody dropped their knife into the seat and it just fell through. So that's fun. In terms of the movie, I think the lack of clear direction is really what hindered it the most. It wanted to be a comedy, a horror, a romance, and like a crime thriller, and it felt muddy. I do also feel like I'm kind of the odd man out because the audience was laughing at a lot more lines than I did, and I don't know, to me, I felt like the comedy was just kind of going for like the lowest hanging fruit and very predictable lines. Like I kind of knew what the setup was going to lead to, and it just, I don't know, it didn't make me like belly laugh. And that's kind of what I was hoping for with this. That being said, I do think that there were some lines that I did appreciate and thought were pretty funny. My favorite bit that they did was there is a member of the support group that has a manipulative partner that really likes ska music, and over the course of like venting about it, she ends up kind of defending it, and she's like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? What am I saying? And I thought that was really funny because it's such a niche, like kind of jab at ska music. And I found it especially funny because I enjoy ska music, and it was just, I don't know, I thought that was good. They even had a special little detail where on the outside of the building painted, I think it's painted on the inside too, but they have "Stop You Messing Around," and it's a lyric from The Specials called "A Message to You, Rudy." Like the song is called "A Message to You, Rudy." So I was just like, hey, I got the thing. Nice. I liked it. So I thought that was pretty funny. Another thing that I appreciated about this film was actually the color grading and like color correcting that they do on the shots. It was really aesthetically pleasing to me. Like they have a lot of interesting uses of complementary colors in scenes, which I think you can even see in the trailer as well. I also loved the contrast between Renfield's like cheery and pastel apartment as opposed to Dracula's like dark and moody place, and I thought that was kind of fun. Something specifically that I liked with the lighting was in the first scene they kind of do this prologue in black and white, and they have the lighting just across Nick Cage's eyes. And I thought that was such a nice touch because it is referencing the lighting that they did across Bela Lugosi's eyes in the original Dracula. I think visually the weakest parts of the film were definitely during the action scenes. I know when there are a bunch of cuts during an action scene, sometimes I do kind of get overwhelmed. Like I think my brain can't process it well enough. But this movie felt insane. Like I didn't even know what I was looking at. That's how many cuts there were in an action scene. What's really weird is that I know a lot of times to disguise kind of weaker or mediocre choreography in an action scene, that's how they hide it. They kind of do a bunch of cuts so it looks like a lot more active and crazy. But I watched some behind the scenes commentary where they actually showed the choreography of the fight scenes, and it looked really good. So like, I don't know why they were even bothering to hide it. And on top of that, Nick Cage can actually fight. Like, he knows martial arts.
Does Nicolas Cage know martial arts? I started practicing Wing Chun with Sifu Jim Lau when I was 12 years old because I wanted to be Bruce Lee. I've always been fascinated by the choreography, if you will, of martial arts, all martial arts.
Last but not least, we gotta talk about the blood and gore. This CGI blood looks so terrible. I love over-the-top, campy geysers of blood. I think it's so fun. Just look at, like, Evil Dead or Kill Bill. I definitely love those movies. So it's not even the fact that it's not realistic, and I've even seen other movies use CGI blood, and it doesn't bother me. But this one just felt so glaringly obvious that I prefer the look of real blood. Alright, so let's dive into the massive talent. Nicolas Cage definitely delivered on what I was expecting from this performance, and I honestly felt like he was having a lot of fun in the role, especially in the behind the scenes. He's so cute, he's just so wholesome, and I'm glad that he had fun with this role. I think the best parts for me were like he does little ad-libs. Like, he had this menacing monologue. I wish I could remember what it was, but he was just like, inkillable, like invincible. And then he goes, whoo! Like, he puts a little whoo in the middle of it. And it just cracked me up so much. We also got some like wiggling eyebrows, and that's just what my heart needed, man. I could watch that all day. I also think that his makeup and costuming was really a shining point in this film. They did a fantastic job. The makeup especially shined after he was engulfed in flames.
How'd it get burned? How'd it get burned? How'd it get burned?
Throughout the scenes that he's in, you kind of see that he's slowly regenerating his skin. And I think that the prosthetics looked really good and like nasty. For the costuming, there's a scene where he comes in and essentially massacres the support group. But he walks in with the most impeccable drip, looking like Gage from Pet Sematary. Like, we even had the top hat cane and all. Like, it was good. I thought it looked so good. So, back to the actors. Playing the main protagonist, Renfield, is Nicholas Hoult. And honestly, I felt like he gave a really solid performance. He does a really good job playing this manipulated and empathetic henchman. I've actually never watched anything else with him in it, and based off of this performance alone, I'm actually interested in seeing what else he's been in, because I really liked him. I think what gains my respect the most from this performance is the fact that since this is a comedy movie, there kind of has to be a straight man, or at least when your main characters are the crazy people, you still have to have normal people that are reacting to this. That's really what amps up the comedy, because if everybody's a wild card, it's just kind of, it's messy. I think he did a really good job not trying to steal the show and just kind of letting the comedic characters do what they needed to do. And that's not to say that Renfield's character doesn't have like a few quips and like quirky line deliveries, but I think that it was a nice balance that he maintained with the characters. I also really appreciated in the writing how they explained how Renfield has managed to exist alongside Dracula all of these years. In the movie, basically they explain it as he gains these additional powers and the maintenance of immortality through eating bugs. Well, okay, maybe not all bugs.
Oh, no, not the beast! Not the beast!
So let's talk about Awkwafina. Two things here that I just want to say. I've never seen anything else that she's been in, so I don't have a frame of reference for how she normally acts in movies. And number two, she did not write the script. She's just saying the lines. Even with those factors, I wasn't a huge fan of this performance. So she played a cop named Rebecca Quincy, and essentially throughout this film, she is out to avenge her father's death from this crime family that killed him. And I think that she was designated to be the main comedic relief, but didn't quite work for me. Like, she would yell a line, and it just, honestly, she was yelling throughout this entire movie, it felt like. And loud doesn't always equal funny. I think that there are plenty of times where people yell, like in I Think You Should Leave.
Call Spectrum and say, I'm not worried about it! I'm not worried about any of this!
I find that funny. So like, I'm not opposed to Loud being funny, but I could not get behind the delivery on these lines, especially when the lines were so predictable every time. There also was this running joke with her coworker named Kyle, and every time that he would speak, she would be like, "Shut the fuck up, Kyle!" And wow, I sounded like a South Park character.
Why don't you shut the fuck up, Kyle?
And it just, like I said before, it felt kind of like expected humor. Like I wasn't surprised by any of the punchlines. That being said, I feel like I can kind of overlook the comedy if the other elements are strong enough. And looking at the writing for her character, I think that was like the biggest problem that I had with it. Throughout the film, it's like her character was written to be in a Melissa McCarthy like buddy cop movie. Like it felt very much like her character from The Heat with Sandra Bullock, and it didn't match what this film was going for. And there wasn't even another like buddy cop that she was playing off of. I mean, I guess you could kind of say that Renfield was supposed to be that, but he was also supposed to be like a romantic lead with her, and that also just, I felt no chemistry between those two. Nope. I did not see an actual relationship blossoming. Honestly, I feel like what they could have done is just completely eliminated her character, or at least that storyline of it, a romance between the two, and it would have been a little bit more like concise and tight of a script. But it just kind of felt like it was like, oh, we're going off on this tangent for a little while, that's kind of boring, and then we're going off on this tangent for a little while, that's also kind of boring. I came here for Dracula and Renfield. Give me those two. I don't care about anyone else. Another part of Quincy's storyline is that there is this crime family, the Lobos family, that were the ones that killed her cop father because he was trying to crack down on their drug ring.
I'm a policeman. See my badge?
And I wish that they would have gone at least a little bit of a different direction other than like big bad mafia crime family. Like, I've seen that so many times, dude. Especially when we have 1,000 times more charismatic villain in Dracula. So in the movie, Dracula ends up teaming up with the crime family because they both love evil. Okay. And I feel like they actually could have put a fun spin on it where Dracula was actually against the crime family. Like, he starts his own war on drugs because these drugs are addicting everyone in the area and it's making all of his victims taste bad. Like, I feel like that could have been a fun spin on it. Speaking of the crime family, we have Jean-Ralphio himself. Ben Schwartz plays the crime boss's little shit of a son, Teddy. I will say, I'm gonna be 100% honest here, Ben Schwartz looks really good with tattoos.
I'll be damned if I didn't get really turned on.
I do kind of wish that he was playing a different type of character because this one still felt very similar to the one I recognize him from in Parks and Rec, where he's basically just kind of like a screw-up kid that's like a little bit of a spoiled brat. A smaller character that I actually really liked was the therapist Mark, who is played by Brandon Scott Jones. He reminds me so much of the actor John Michael Higgins. He is just such a good character actor, and something about like the delivery that Jones gives in this film really reminded me of him. Fun little fact, John Michael Higgins actually plays I think psychologist, Dr. Vance, in another vampire movie, Blade Trinity. Anyway, I think that Brandon Scott Jones did a really good job, and like his line delivery and comedic timing very much reminds me of that other actor. And even though his funniest line was in the trailer, it still managed to get a laugh out of me in the theater. So I thought it was pretty good. Okay, so let's talk about the plot and the writing. So the film is set in modern day New Orleans, and just New Orleans is so rich in attractions and interesting features to it that I feel like the movie just really squandered. There's even a subculture of people that exists today in New Orleans called the Vampires of New Orleans. The notoriety even goes so far as there's even a vampire cafe in the French Quarter that sells $15 blood bag cocktails. Talk about bleeding you dry.
Brother, this guy stinks!
I just feel like there totally could have been an involvement of this community in the film, and I think that it would have tied in the locations so much better. And also there's so much room for comedic material in that whole idea, because like Renfield could be going to the vampire cafe thinking like, oh wow, they've really adapted to this culture and there's blood here, and then he brings it back and like, you know, Dracula gets upset because it's not real blood. Or Dracula meets these vampires and realize like they have fake teeth and stuff. Like there's so much that you could do with that. Also, I think the involvement of the French Quarter, it could be a lot of like kind of fish out of water funny material where like Dracula's getting beads thrown on him, or a lot of tourists mistake him for one of the live street performers in Jackson Square. Like that could be perfect. On the opposite end, you could also do a more serious take where Dracula is awakened after all of these years and he goes down Bourbon Street and is just disgusted at like how people are living their lives nowadays. I mean, hell, in Blade Trinity, Dracula wakes up after all these years and is just disgusted at the way that the world is and how his likeness has basically been made into a joke, and how his race has fallen. I just love the Blade trilogy so much. Another missed opportunity for the plot is basically just developing what they had set up initially. When the movie starts, it's initially centered around Renfield going to these support group meetings for people in manipulative or narcissistic relationships. From going to those meetings, he finds out about these narcissists and basically hunts them down and brings them to Dracula to feed on. And I really like this concept where it's basically vigilante justice but with a vampire angle. Like, he's like Dracula Dexter Morgan. I thought that could have been a really fun concept. But instead, we don't linger on that at all, and we make this hard left turn into a formulaic cop drama. And that's just what's so frustrating to me, is that we had such an interesting, unique idea, and then we went for this. And I didn't even enjoy the action sequences either. Like, I don't know, man. I'm so distraught. Like, I wanted to love this, and I ultimately felt let down. Alright guys, so that is about it for my Renfield review. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please let me know in the comments below if you agree at all. Like, please, I need somebody to be on my team. If you enjoy these movie reviews, definitely give this video a thumbs up so I know, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It really helps me out because I'd love to have more of you guys stick around and see this channel grow. And with that, I will see you guys in the next one. Don't forget to stay soft and spooky. Bye!